Well, that escalated quickly. Alright guys, in this video today, we're going to be taking another look at Bitcoin. Obviously, I did a video at 3 p.m. UK time just to kind of go through what was going on there in terms of that pullback, the data, what it was suggesting, and what I thought was the most probable. And things have changed very rapidly since then. So we're going to dive down into Bitcoin, take a look at what is going on there, and what this actually might mean going further forward, etc. Right, so as we get into it, if you find it useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and you are going to be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. So I was wrong, and let's go ahead and correct it. Okay, we're going to take a look here at what's going on, right? So obviously we have to analyze quite a few things to make sure that we are on point here. With where we may have gone wrong with our wave counts. Okay, so it's important that we understand this. This is all micro movements, and all of this kind of builds up into the daily and the weekly chart, right? And obviously those weekly charts, and they're the true kind of picture, right? Weekly, monthly, they give you the overview of what is actually going on with Bitcoin, in the bigger macro trend, right? And it's really important you take note of those positions. With that being said, though, it is the micro movements of what happens on the daily, the 8-hourly, the 4-hourly, and the hourly that build up into those macro views, right? So it's important that we understand that, because obviously what happens on the smaller time frames builds into the weekly time frame, which is obviously the one that we really want to focus in on the bigger kind of longer term outlook. Obviously you guys, and specifically I talked to the majority of the audience, are interested in the micro movements. When do you actually get back in? Are you looking to accumulate? How small of a pullback are we looking for? Is it a severe pullback? All that kind of good stuff. And because that is where the micro movements on the smaller time frames really matter. Okay. So on our chart here, we obviously started out with the bottom here. We're looking for this impulsive move to the upside. We have this marked as completed here at about $45,500. And if we actually break this down, it's also very possible you can count this differently. But I'm also counting 5 waves, 3. So basically, it's let me actually grab my pencil here. So we have 5 waves, followed by 3 waves, followed by 5 waves, followed by 3 waves, followed by 5 waves. Okay, it's a 5 3 5 3 5. This is an impulsive move. Okay, so an impulsive move should be broken down into these components, and we actually have 5 waves just here. Okay, we then have 3 waves down. We then zoom on out a little bit. We have 5 waves up here. We have 3 waves down. We then zoom out a little bit, and we just move that chart over, and then we have 5 waves here. Okay, so that fulfills our 5 3 5 3 5 criteria for that entire pulsive move, right? And obviously on the larger time frame, you would actually just draw this up as a wave 1, a wave 2, a wave 3, a wave 4, and a wave 5. Okay, and obviously that measurement of wave 3 to 4 gives us a good idea as to where wave 5 is likely to go according to the Fibonacci retracement tool. Okay, so again, we can see here that we went for a full 4.236 extension. Okay, and again, we kind of stopped on this journey at a few other key areas as well. But so we obviously have that kind of working out, and we can kind of see that, yes, that makes a lot of sense. We have the 5 3 5 3 5 moves. So if we're going to redraw it, we're going to be looking slightly differently. We'd have to, if we are assuming that we're going up for an additional wave count, this section has to be omitted, and we start with 5 3 5. Then we look for 3, and then we look for an additional 5, right? So under that premise, we should redraw this section. I still cannot see a definitive 5-wave count, but what we do have is this break. Now, this is a definitive break of our previous high, according to Binance data. And I'm pretty certain that we'd probably have the same thing here. Yeah, we definitely went higher on Bitfinex as well. Is it Bitfinex? Bitstamp, sorry, Bitstamp. So that's looking pretty good. So we know that there's something going on here. Now, if we're looking, this is all overlap, right? So we know this is just a bunch of corrective moves. And the fact that this went higher, this is, potentially now a flat correction. So we could end up with our A wave here, our B wave up, and our C wave coming down. That's also very, very valid, and something that we should consider. So without having to do any kind of recount on our waves here, we could acknowledge that actually this is just a flat correction, sideways trade, before we actually get into the next set of criteria and to the upside. So this effectively means that 53535 is still valid, and we actually just have a zigzag or a sideways flat correction, however you kind of want to articulate it. And the B wave is technically allowed to go higher than the originating wave, and you would expect the C wave still to go lower than the A wave. And those are a perfectly valid corrective move for Elliott wave. So we can acknowledge that that is something that is potentially on the horizon here, but we also should probably also take a look at what if actually this is a wave 4, right? So in that case, we should try to make this kind of fit our wave 4 criteria. So we would expect that to be an ABC, and then we would look for 5 waves, 3, 5, and so forth, right, as we continue to grow to the upside. Now, there is an ABC inside this A wave, that's fine, but then things get really tricky around this B wave here. And obviously that pullback that we've seen, that push up, again, all of this stuff, I think is building up into something big, and I think it's not natural, and I'll put that out there. Just it doesn't feel natural, it doesn't look natural. The data doesn't suggest that this is anything more than the price being pushed to specific points. That being said, you know, speculative kind of, you know, tinfoil hat to one side, we should try to make sense of these candles, right? Is there a logical pattern here that we can acknowledge and, you know, utilize to our advantage, right? Is this a wave 4? So if it was an ABC corrective move on the same kind of scale that we had seen already, right? It's not going to be a big ABC, it should be micro. That would be this entire A wave. Then we'll be looking for, you know, a definitive 5 wave counts. Now, if this here is in fact our you know, our 4th wave correction, then we should be looking to go towards $47,000, maybe $47,500. There's a couple of resistance points up here as well, $47,090 and $47,570 approximately. And this is just based on going through this area of resistance over here and support, and trying to work out, you know, where are we likely to kind of find the next kind of level of resistance. Now, the 618, the minimum threshold for a 5th wave, would put us at about 47,260. So, well, like there's so much overlap here. This is not looking like a impulsive move or, you know, a definitive 5 wave count, and there's no kind of way to kind of really map that out just yet. So, I'm thinking that it's not likely. It's not likely that this is a 4th wave correction. So this then leads me to thinking, yes, it's probably more likely to be a flat correction, and we are likely to come down lower than this A wave. Even very briefly, it shouldn't be too much because we haven't spiked above it too high. That can go a little bit higher, depending on that move. That C wave should come down a little bit lower. And then from here, because this is a corrective action, or depending on how you want to articulate it, an expanding flat or a continuation pattern, however you kind of want to look at it, it's the same thing in essence, right? It's a continuation of the trend that was before. So we should actually be looking at least an ABC to the upside afterwards, okay? So flat correction, expanding correction, continuation, however you want to look at it, sideways trading, many different ways to articulate it. It all kind of pinpoints to a point where we should be looking for a natural correction. This takes us down towards that $42,000 range, and then we get another surge to the upside. And again, if we look at the resistance levels, there's going to be something in this kind of $47,000 to $47,500 range for that. Obviously too soon to really call such a move like this on this hourly chart, but that's kind of what you would expect to see. Now, what would be required to actually see that kind of come down and into this area here? Well, we obviously have the stuff going on with the Fed, some numbers that have been known about for a while, but that could be utilized to scare retail investors to bring in the price down here. Market makers could, of course, just push the price down there, as I think they've actually pushed the price up here anyway. And now what I mean by that is this entire run from down here, there was no real bearing to it. It just kind of sprung out of nowhere. This in itself is a pattern that we should be very, very cautious over, as it has a bit of a tendency to lean to what market makers have done historically. And as a result of that, the same pattern would be seen on the way down. So we should be very cautious over that, if that is, of course, what's going on there. But that's, again, tinfoil hat scenario, and we don't want to learn too much on that right now. With all that being said, we should really start to look at the larger time frames, see what's going on with those larger time frames, and is there a reason to see this pullback? Is there some kind of catalyst that sees this pulling back a little bit lower into that C wave that we kind of need to get that good traction to the upside? And without this coming down, this doesn't make a lot of sense, right? There's very little sense to be made out of these hourly candles, let alone if you were to go down any lower. That would just be a bit daft. But if we go up to the 4 hourly, what has actually happened here in the last little while is quite dramatic. So when I did my 3 o'clock video, we were down here, right, in the oversold area of the chart. Instead, now we are heading right up there into the overbought area, and actually we're in the same position that we were. Not a lot has really changed on the 4 hourly chart, right? We're finding ourselves with these wicks. And of course, guys, these wicks are good indicators of exhaustion. So as the price fell back down here, this long wick shows you that the sellers were exhausted and buyers got control. Likewise, when the wick pushed up here, you saw that the buyers got exhausted and sellers took control. And that's kind of how you end up with a dojo candle where the market's very indecisive, i.e. we open and close at the same position. That's not quite exactly what's happened here, but it's very, very close to it. So we obviously have some interesting kind of stuff going on. We saw significant amount of volume just come in on that one particular candle on the 4 hourly chart. This is going up into the overbought area, although it can be up here for a while. This actually puts us in a strong position to acknowledge that a C wave coming down slightly lower than the A wave is also still very valid. Okay, so although I was wrong about the smaller time frame here, not pushing higher than our originating A wave, it's very possible that this actually now does continue to kind of have this correction regardless, and it becomes a flat correction or expanding correction. So back into that 4 hourly, this here would allow our C wave to come in. Our hourly chart will also already allow this as well. So those two things are in aligned and not a problem. Now the 8 hourly hasn't really moved just yet, but we're still waiting for some kind of decent traction here to see whether or not that actually comes in. Now on this note, we also need to take stock of the volume position as well, right? So we had one spike of volume, if I draw that in the right area here, one spike of red volume, and that actually brought us down into our A wave. And now we obviously pushed up above our originating A wave here with a decent size of volume. But outside of that, what have you got? You've got decreasing volume as we're pushing up. Okay, so that's not the best tell in the world. That's basically telling us that there's less and less volume coming in here, pushing that price up, meaning that is going to run out and you're going to exhaust that. Okay, we saw this one bit of volume, and that could be for numerous different reasons. We should be quite cautious over that. What happens next here with the volume is going to be a key thing to help us understand whether or not we are still decreasing regardless of what happened here. Okay, and if that is the case, this is going to get a reversal real soon, and we are more than likely going to come down into that C wave low. And again, this is just a healthy correction. This isn't anything to worry about, unless of course the market makers decide to pull the market down, like potentially they pushed the market up with this historical pattern that's been played out time and time before. So all of this here, and again, you can look at the volume to know what is healthy, what's not healthy, and all that kind of good stuff. But for the most part, we should be looking for a minimum pullback here, in my opinion, and before potentially, in the hopium, of course, is that we push up. But it's very important to also note that we might just end up with a really small, little bit of noise, and then another kind of really big pullback. And again, this is kind of what you see here, right? So if this C wave comes in nice and low, you could end up with a kind of zigzag pattern, potentially right here. Kind of sideways trading, or what is also known not just out of Elliott wave, but like as a continuation pattern, continuing the trend that went in beforehand. So we come down, we continue sideways with a zigzag, and then we pull on down even further, continuing that downtrend. In the same way that we saw it over here when we reached the threshold of $42,000, zigzag, we pushed up for 5 additional waves. So do watch out for these kind of patterns. They're very important to be aware of. Obviously, we hope for the break up to the upside, obviously. Although, you know, a zigzag like this and a further pullback just allows you to accumulate if you've already missed out on accumulating this side. The only difference, and this is actually a really important point to note, guys, that if you were incredibly risk adverse, like I am, like Chris is on the channel, for example, what you're being gifted here is an additional opportunity to accumulate, knowing that you've actually invalidated some of the additional lows that were not invalidated on the way up beforehand. So when you're talking about $39,000 Bitcoin or $37,000 Bitcoin, $40,000 Bitcoin, it doesn't really matter. But it wasn't until we actually passed $45,000 did the low areas of things like $31,000 actually get invalidated. So this time round, you're actually pulling back in a healthy correction, knowing that actually you're going to be moving up into new all-time highs because you've invalidated some of the lows that were there previously. So depending on your outlook here, this is actually a bit of a gift potentially for accumulating on that way down, because you have that confidence of knowing that you've actually invalidated the slightly lower lows that were not invalidated on the way up prior. So really cool to kind of note that. We obviously hope that we don't see that to a degree. I mean, I would like to accumulate, but if it doesn't happen, great, we can still continue to move up after the correction. So the 4-hourly chart, is looking good. The 8-hourly chart does need to see a little bit of a correction here, but again, this can be down here for quite some time, and it isn't really a problem. If it's just a one wave down, for example. Now, as we come up into the daily chart, we can see the clearest reason why you need to see a correction. And that is just because this chart is just so heavily overbought, right? It's been up here for a while already. And we can see what happens before when it's up there for a while. You do end up with corrections that follow. So we should be very, very aware that this correction is very much required. It's not a deep one, it's a very healthy one. And again, if we do revisit those lows of $37,000, which I don't think we will, but if we do, that is a bit of a gift, as I said earlier. I think the most probable area really that we're looking for is anywhere between 39 and 40, maybe 42. There's good support around there. That would be really good, because I think that's going to be a real good area for many people to get back in, or to dollar cost average in, or to just extend positions generally. But this chart seems so heavily overbought, the volume decreasing here as we start to reach this top. We should be very, very aware that we are looking for correction. Let me just move that out of the way there so you can get a better idea on that volume. We can see that the volume on setting kind of came in. This is when we actually hit the 32 lows. Pretty certain of it, yeah, 32k lows. And then we started to push up, right? And we started to push up when the volumes decreased. We then started to go up most recently with that one singular large amount of candle here, a little bit of selling pressure. We pushed up again, really good volume, and then we started to plateau with the volume on the daily. So it's important that we note that a correction here is due. The stochastic RSI is overbought. We have this also on the 4-hourly and the 1-hourly. The 8-hourly, it's okay. It's not too bad. So this one wave that we're looking for here before seeing potentially continuation or a bounce to the upside is very much required. It's something that we should be mentally preparing for, and we should be potentially, if we were looking to accumulate, having some fear on the side, ready to get back into the market or to extend positions as the time does come. But guys, I really wanted to do a video to kind of update you guys, to say, yes, I was wrong about my previous call, that I did it at 3 o'clock, but the macro picture hasn't changed. It is still very much overbought. It does need to see a nice healthy correction, and I would be very cautious after seeing candles behave the way they have been. It definitely doesn't feel natural. It doesn't look natural. The data doesn't suggest that it is natural, and you should be very cautious at this point over what you do. Entering the market right now to me seems quite risky, considering we are looking at some form of corrective action on the larger timeframes. The weekly chart's looking very, very good though, and we should be very mindful that new all-time highs are just around the corner. So if you're a hodler, rest assured, even if there is a pullback, it should be short-lived, and we should be looking for new all-time highs just around the corner. If you're looking to accumulate, I think that opportunity is coming, and I don't think it's going to be too long before you're going to be gifted that opportunity as well. Either way, I do think that this market is going to get super cool and super interesting in the coming days and weeks, and I do expect that new all-time highs for Bitcoin and many altcoins is literally going to be only a matter of a few weeks to months away, and I do think this market is going to get incredibly interesting at that point. So if you have found this video useful, informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so you are going to be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With that said, done and out of the way, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.